I'm live. We're live. This is great. Is that too bright? That seems a little bright. Maybe I'll kind of move that over a little bit. That's a little. There we go. Okay. Well, here we are again. It is early 2026. I am your poet, Gary Dale Burns. I will wait here probably, for the next 5-10 minutes in order to see if I'll get some people joining us. Wow, look at the flip on the hair back here. And I was originally going to also have an Instagram live going on at the same time, but I recently learned that they changed their requirements, and I am 12 followers shy of 1,000 followers, and you have to have 1,000 or more in order to even stream live anymore. So because of that, I'm just here on YouTube, but I like doing YouTube lives. I started doing YouTube lives a couple years back when I was celebrating my 25th year of writing poetry. And while I was doing that, I had a weekly Tuesdays for the poetry reading. And though that eventually, when that was done, that turned into my Substack, which I just had my 86th post. So I'm getting really close to my 100th post on my Substack. It's just garydaleburns.substack.com. Let me put that in the chat for everyone if you guys want to check it out. We're getting pretty close to 100 followers. I think I'm at like 60, 65, something like that. So you gotta appreciate these milestones when they come up, and really kind of pat yourself on the back and not get too down in the mouth. I'm trying to work on having more positive self-talk instead of negative self-talk. I can often feel, because of my history of depression, I can feel that I am just not doing enough. I find it hard to relax because I believe that if I am relaxing, that I'm not working towards my goals. I'm not doing well. So it's what's wrong with your upload? Okay, I just want to double check here that everything is going good. I just put an update on Instagram about having to go to YouTube Live. So yeah, let me just see if that posted. It looks like it did post now. And if people go to my bio, they can find YouTube live readings. There we go. Great. Okay. GDB's poems of 2025. GDB's poems of 2025. That's this. So again, I'm gonna sit here with my. This is not soda, but kvass, which is a malt, non-alcoholic malt beverage. I'm not doing any drinking for St. Patty's Day. It's been a while since I've really sort of drunk or done it that's overly social or in any kind of way that is, I don't know, celebratory. I'd like to. I think drinking can be something that really benefits people in a social setting when there's something to celebrate. So tonight, we're celebrating the end of the year of the snake, which ended last month, and the beginning of the year of the horse, which we are in now. I think it's kind of fitting to do this reading here on St. Patrick's Day, because if you don't know, this idea of St. Patrick getting rid of all the snakes on the Emerald Isle. It's it's folklore. It's a tale, but there, I think as a poet, I see that there's meaning in there. You know that what we specifically associate snakes with, at least in the West, is not positive. Certainly within Christianity, the associations with the snake in the Garden of Eden, there's this idea that Ireland itself is a kind of a green space, a green, or maybe even in some way, Ire and Eden are related, and that St. Patrick was able to bring Christianity, early Christianity, which is a kind of Christianity which I don't really believe exists in many places at all anymore. But that kind of story, I think, has a lot of poetic meaning and a lot of poetic weight and value to it. So I think it's fitting to have today's reading for poems composed in the year of the snake be on St. Patrick. We're bidding farewell. We're bidding farewell to these poems, most of which are on my Substack. So what's interesting, something you can do if you're watching and you want to have a separate tab open. If you're on your phone, you could also have, if you have a laptop or another device open, you can go to my Substack, to garydaleburns.substack.com, and then you can follow along with my previous posts. So let me just kind of let you guys know, and I'll put this in the chat. So Sonnet 18 is the first poem. And if you go on to my Substack, I've got it open here myself. Let me just go to my posts. I can let you know which number that is. I wrote about 30 poems last year. So we'll hear me read pretty much all of them. There's a couple that I just don't feel it's appropriate to share. But yes, so number 44, so post number 44, called New Year's Kiss, is the name of the post for the 18th sonnet that I composed. Second chapbook that I ever self-published was called 14 Years, 14 Sonnets. Unfortunately, there aren't any copies available. They all sold out. I think there was a run of about 50 of them. But if you are interested in some of my other work, I recently published a collection of poems called Rootless. And this is an example of one of the self-published pieces. I have like a kind of, this is a quincunx. It was a way of mathematically organizing orchards for optimal spread. But the geometric principle of it around the seedling became really interesting to me, kind of through the work of Sir Thomas Browne, but also some other writers. Got a little cool detail there. I don't know if you could see that. We know what that is? Yeah. A little wax stamp with a G on it. And then you open that up, and then, yes, Rootless poems. And most of these were written over a period of about 10 years, actually. So it covers a period of my life that was lived in New York City and then transitioned up to moving up here and living and working in the Hudson Valley. So yeah, let me see if I can't get some other let's see if I can't get some other people onto here. I'll put a good link, an easy link that everyone can follow. But we're going to get started here in about 5 minutes. I've already got the poems all printed out. The cover page, I used a piece of paper that the poet and author Taylor Larson had given to me. She wrote this book, Stranger, Father, Beloved, and made some other recommendations for me as well. And then I believe her daughter or son put a bunch of stamps on there. But it just was a piece of paper that I had hanging around, and I was like, you know what, I need to kind of have them all printed out. I printed this out originally to do a reading at Monument Gallery in Kingston for Daniel Baker's chapbook release and his latest chapbook. And I really, it's a really fun Spiral Editions put out. And I was very fortunate to be reading with him that evening. So I recommend checking it out. And I don't know. I don't like reading from my phone. I don't like reading from, I just don't like reading from devices. I prefer to have the words inked there. And that was what I was going to mention. If you do join us, so yeah, so I'll begin. Here we go. Let me just put it in the chat. I'll begin reading from post number 44 on my Substack. The thing is that if you log in, or if you subscribe, please subscribe and follow. That would be great to get more on there. But if you are not subscribe to me, that's okay. I don't have a paywall for the regular poems. The only paywalls I have on my Substack are for longer works of prose, some of which are chapters for a couple books that I'm trying to realize bit by bit. So you will be able to access and see the post. So yeah, post number 44 is where I'll begin reading from here in just a bit. Again, I'm just gonna put another story up here just for everyone to try and see here. Dun, 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 dun. And let me find the link here from my YouTube Live. Is in the chat. Yeah. George Bush himself, the painter, is in the chat. No way. Oh, hey Gavin. Good to see you. Thanks for joining. Gavin, if you want to go ahead and plug your Substack, you should put that in the chat as well. Gavin writes particular histories, regional histories, and that have huge, I think, national geological. There's all these kinds of connections that he's able to make via the greater Watertown area. I'm not sure how exactly to describe it, but I feel that your work connects like Watertown and like Hudson Valley and like New York City, Washington D.C., and you're really kind of building up quite a map with work. So yeah, if you wanted to drop that link there in the chat, please go ahead. I'm just gonna drop this link for the live, and then I'm gonna get started. So thanks for joining me, man. I really appreciate it. Let's see. I remember growing up and having to learn exactly what to type into the the search bar, not the search bar, the bar at the top. Why am I forgetting what it's called? And if if you missed a character, then it wouldn't work. You wouldn't go to your website, and you always had to begin with http://www. Oh my gosh, just like the kids that I teach don't know anything about that. They don't know anything about that these days. Great. Join me now. For poetry. Gary's poems of 2025. Okay. All right. I think I've done my due diligence to try to get people on here. And aside from blasting everyone with texts, but I just don't think that would have been very appropriate. Okay. There it is. There it is. All right. Okay. All right. I'm gonna put Valley. Let me put a link to your Substack here. So I think more people should check out Valley Hopper, but that's, am I biased? Might be biased. I'm repping you, Gavin. Okay, there we go. All right, people got 2 Substacks to check out after this evening. It's great. Okay, let's go. Oh, no one's here now. That's great. All right. Well, almost should I wait till 20 minutes? Maybe I'll just wait 2 more minutes, see if anyone else joins. Gavin, get all your friends to subscribe to me. Get me a bunch of new subscribers, and then no one's tuning in. It's okay. It is what it is. All right. So the first poem of the night is called Sonnet 18. And again, it's post number 44 on my Substack, Tuesdays for the Poetry. Just trying to make sure I don't have anything else open on here, so it runs nice and steady. There we go. All right. Sonnet 18. Even an atheist knows the hot truth of love's power, naming love's coming, babe, unfoiled, swimming neath the vaulted roof of my mouth, through which, please make your tongue wade. As smoke and paper blossoms rain like spring on the slusty frog prints below the ice, you can see, touch. Thought out drinking, I eat from your plate, not once, twice, but thrice. Transformation? Full on crazy, smack me out of my stupor and into your bed, where the new year begins, keyhole to key, unlocking silence, awaiting Godhead. Without a fairy tale ending, we kiss and leave the unknowing we'll never miss. You're playing me in Price Chopper. That does count for something. Local spirit. Local spirit. Thanks, Gavin. Okay, next one is called It's Me. Of course, whenever a poet sets them, you gotta question it. The I is suspect. It's me. What I believe defunds me, and what I disavow, static cling. Even in nightmares, we also share the same apartment, a stasis of fears. I told you I was broken in the parking lot above the waterfall that once fed Sextile Mill. I'm a busted loom my inner child's hand could fix, missing fingers. My adult teeth bite inside my lip, and on my webbing fade also prayers answered every day. Maybe that's backward, it read so. I try texting and it sends to someone else. No reply. In our silence we can talk forever, but eternity's cousin is inbred with I never. There's much the perfect Christmas tree can fix, even rootless, but I'm not sure it's me. Next one is the last one that was written in January 2025. Tarmac, tarmac. If it's war they want, then their hearts are sick, but if love's what they're after, boy, they're getting desperate. We hold above our destination, shaking. I take a nosedive from the window seat. Bouncing off this elderly earth ball, a boli that marks my self-deceit. On a map for gun-shy hitchhikers, thumbing Cadillac, leaving graveyards, always graveyards, full 500,000 more than if we have named it COVID, barely 19. At one Saturn's return, apart from the best friend you canceled, but watching the same planetary parade, our inane celebration is hastily thrown like taffeta over the Byzantine remark you made. But then the captain speaks. We're landing in a different country than the one we took off from, and none of us have a passport to enter through the gate to this blessed kingdom. Until negotiations are reached, we taxi. A breathless speech, the first and last of its kind given. So we count the tombs again in tarmac, tarmac. 3, the pilot, you, my neighbor, and me. Unbuttoned on Lupercalia, or St. Teresa's Valentine. So this is Valentine's Day poem. Some crows flew at their warm roost on Lupercalia and cawed beneath the astringent light of a withering moon Leo tonight. I pushed my fingertips through the window's crack into the freeze of February, instinctively reaching out for their intelligence, as if a black feather could pull thread to unravel the veil over nature my deranged ancestors weave to separate me from the lift of their wings. Taking the cue, I chalk out in road salt my leftover affections that spoil in the thaw of warmer rain on still cool ground. Much more prone to the bacterial sadness of anthropocentricity. My heart is a compass set for an electromagnetic anomaly, spinning and spinning, disturbing my mind with unanswerable questions. Always more questions, begging my haggard body to home in on a radical place, without any dull indifference aching from love's lashings. To set intentions, we scour the tub, apostrophize, and light a little candle. Hours later than crows, ghoulishly pulling a thread, a button comes off easy, but the garment remains whole. Okay. I didn't really write that many haiku this past year. I think this might be the only one that I wrote. I do still enjoy the form. I had my friend Kenneth, who sometimes comes to these, although he's an hour behind us in Nebraska, in Omaha, so it's probably dinner time. He's having dinner with his family. But you know, this is recording. I'll post it. I'll post it later. The haiku is called Bee Robbing. Bee robbing. Larvae on camo, hitching out the Hindu Kush. Peace wears a death's head. Just thinking about the conflict in, well, the 20 years that we had in Afghanistan, for the most part, in relation to that haiku. And yeah, for some reason 9/11 must have been on my mind with the next poem too, because it's in here as well. Yeah, I mean, I was in high school and then my first years of college when we were in Iraq and Afghanistan, and it definitely had an impact on my life and the way that the politics of today have continually been shaped, and the horrors that are happening in West Asia are a continuation of those begun by Western powers in the 20th century. So this one is called Around the Horn, which is kind of in reference to the Horn of Africa. So there definitely is something about colonialism here and imperialism. I don't know how successful it is, but that's what I'm trying to work in here with Around the Horn. The oil company in town sells us our headstones. Nothing in nature is wasted. Irony, reincarnated or risen from ground zero on 9/14/2001 through a sunbeam laced with loss and compensations. I tread Kepler far too young, elliptically exercised with Milton as well, stretching me high into number, size, and motion too far flung, remote and unbending. Energetic without rules. We fall to push off the ground again, working the anvil like a gymnast, pounding our own pommels into place. Hoppin', hoppin', stop, swing around, return to earth, where we were breathed into existence, in correct embouchure, to eat figs, wrought iron gates held open. I'm here for training, as long as you're here for exchanging pleasantries over coke, to spark what will shine through gabled dark after patiently doing both technique and témoin. Useful to have the Substack open in front of you. Let me just give a little bit of an update if we have any new people watching here. So we're about at April 2025. April 2025, and I have us at Pete Sneaker Sneezed here. That is that's the poem that I'm on, and that is post number, I want to say it's about 50. No, 53. Post number 53. There's a poem that I forgot to print out here, actually. So let me include it here in the reading. This is this is number 52. I got to make a note there in my printout that I should calculate all you want. Calculate all you want. So sometimes I've written on Substack and I just I don't end up putting it into a document. It's part of my process, but a little bit of a blip here, but that's okay. So calculate all you want. Post number 52 on my Substack is what we're reading next. So this is calculate all you want. On holidays, does the parallax cease and make of all the smearing discrete things that dance in their static? A bolt of lightning with all its sisters falling at once from the Caesarean of a thunderhead, as brief and bare and steep as the loneliness of colicky infants in cribs shaped like prison cells, stilled. What do you call a waterfall that disappears the moment you can find it? Was it ever more a piss of swollen prostate or a bunghole uncorked prematurely? Calculate all you want over the figures that lean their way toward beauty's cancer, eating away at your propriety like candles sipping darkness. I'll handle time as processed clay on a wheel that's binding like a tourniquet just above the visitation of a wound upon me, and such. The alphabet all jumbled and flung out, according to some ancient curse, tears me away from the signs that tell me, go, go, go toward the great attractor, to my destiny. When someone thinks of you, it's not the reception of command from antennae of nape hair that turns your ear, that goosebumps belie, to be remembered even from afar as a summons to quest after cradle of the face whose peekabooing, a sweet burst of drama. Broken springs, this mechanism known as love needs the maintenance of steady hands to keep on running. That's a good one. I don't know. I don't know why I neglected to print that one out. But that one's that was good. It still holds up. Some of these I feel like they still hold up, and other ones I'm not so sure. Now I'm like, okay, gosh, I need to make sure that I I have the same. Okay, everything else looks good. I'll just have to make sure I include calculate all you want in my records. So we will move on to Pete Seeger Sneezed Here, which is a play on Pete Seeger Sang Here, which is related to my place of work. I recently moved to Poughkeepsie, New York in April of 2025, last year. And they have a lot of pride around the work that was done in the 60s around the civil rights movement, and hosting Pete Seeger here, and concerts that he played. And I'm not speaking, I just think that what I'd like to speak ill of in this poem is that the sort of the generation of these, they had a certain idea about what they would like to do in the world, or what they were doing for the world, or how that was going to be accomplished. And I think we see today that that was a vast failure, and that the countercultural movement um, was, excuse me, a sort of shirking away from the responsibility that a lot of people with privilege had to use it, to dismantle the system, rather than just sort of abandoning the system or working against the system in a, well, I don't want to be involved in that in any kind of way. I wonder sometimes, it's like if the hippies who had sort of left their job and you know, the sort of what is it, you know, dropping acid, dropping out of college, like all this kind of activity, if they had instead tried to work to change the system from within, or dismantle the system from within, instead of um, doing the back to the land movement, or, you know, I don't know. I just, the democratic process is boring, and it is bureaucratic, and it is difficult, and takes a lot of time and effort. And the idea that you could sort of escape into Buddhism, or escape into yoga, or escape into, you know, an organic food co-op, and find an alternative to the culture that brought you up, as a way of building a new world, I don't think worked. I think we can honestly say that it didn't work. So there's something about Pete Seeger singing here at the private school that I work at, and the kind of privilege that comes to those who send their children here, and how that is a contrast to boots on the ground work that a lot of people did in the 60s during the civil rights movement. That there is a, I don't know, there's a real contrast. So all to say, I don't normally preface my poems with this much, so I'm just gonna stop and let the poem speak for what it might. So this is Pete Seeger Sneezed Here. In the shadow of the memory of mountains, where the only tells of our crumbling civilization will be signposts in front of aborted subdivisions, half-built like shoddy birdhouses, small joys on Terror Planet, great-grandsons of 68, Vienna sausages, big blocks of cave cheese. Don't worry, pal, everything will set back together. It's just hard to keep in failing light where the pieces match up. When morning dawns, the contractors still wine drunk from a wedding at Capharnaum, who shimmy up into their highboys, won't be able to help it, even with Turkish coffee, setting the world a little askew in the harsh sun. Who needs landscapers? Frugal trick, lump instead those who planted this school in a soil of abolition, watered with blood with those beyond the 9 partners and 38, who never saw a black face in cap and gown until that contested graduation. Should we care if Edward Norton is snubbed again when Peter Seeger sneezed here, reverberating off the skin of his banjo, as someone said, God bless you? Time to make the rounds for intruders in ancient refuse, where they put in the new tree. I don't know if I'll measure higher than the last button of my Wrangler fly, but hey, what did you learn today? Next poem's called Joe. I don't know who Joe is, but maybe you do. Here's Joe. Joe is theatrical and likes pretty girls, but lacks the faculty to pick out on pearls. He's kinder than most, but dumb as a thumb when he's hit in the nail by the hammer of love. His charisma is low, but his confidence high. The returns on his wit are enough to get by, till the flirting is done and a number is saved that Joe never calls, always feel played. Joe has an interest in much older women who just want to talk, to be taken and given. Never as girls, neither as mothers, but as lives who have lived to be one to discover. With baby-faced looks, a chain round the neck, shining through hair that could be its own leck. But Joe has to fly, once it's revealed who's ashamed to be seen and whose sentiments veiled. Joe isn't logical and tries to pretend choices always connect beginnings to ends. Or falser than this, that intentions stay good, even when it all fails like a young parenthood. He doesn't measure his life by the clock, but since timing is gilden, mark him at a stock. And where he is shipped, post no address of return, for Joe's now a stepfather, committed as he is stubborn. That was Joe. What do you know, Joe? What do you know? This one's called Burnt Flag. The 14th brood of cicadas prepare to emerge. The plasma of a dying star demagnetizes, and medieval times run a trade war into the future. All these had already been carved out of soapstone when the last king of great Zimbabwe ran out of salt. Time is an architecture without blueprints or ruins, where the graffiti of a phallus is always stiff and generating a grifter that swindles himself. Love is a blade that sings of its making, not its blood drawing, forged in a nation founded for a citizenry of two. The imaginal stage, all you want to be is a resonance, vibrating for them to taste your meat, to pull you from the chorus. Burnt flag in the morning, light upon a sphere. What has fallen away from the pole are tatters of shadow. We can no longer illume. Sell me then, not that I am cheap, but the tougher part of conjuring me is to speak after I'm shut up. The humming field twirls its skirt with 13 folds. Listen sky. Plip plopping, plip ploppin', plip plopping. Do two prayers make a third? Do I say it anyways in seclusion as directed by you when I've written a third on my heart? Or in praying both together, do I twist high and suffocate each breath, rising out for liberty into the cold that crystallizes all fluid? To find warmth, to be warm in the cold rather than to be too warm and finding no cool. I can dig capillary action and rising up when gravity is absent. Flight is a foolish bird that grounds itself in embarrassment when it misses its prey. Afterthunk. Celestial mechanics. A phrase in which Da Vinci would have delighted. I mean, I want to auto-center the subject of me in prayer, but my car also needs a miracle. I take a train and pray when we stop for smokes or chew, kneeling for the engine and the engineer, for God's own plip-plopping of rain breaking through the cabin, to douse me, Lord, make me a flippy floppy fish man, swimming away to you, leaving rail and road and following the currents beneath your ice on your timetable in the holy aquifer of life. Maybe there was something there. Maybe, we'll see. More kvass. It's weird stuff, but it's good. Thanks to Gillian. Thanks to my lovey for getting me the kvass. The strange kvass. It's good to be with poems, right? And poetry while the world sits on the brink. Speaking of which, here's a poem called Dead House. I recently read memoirs from a dead house by Dostoevsky last year. Just about done with Crime and Punishment. I'm going to move on to The Idiot after that. I haven't ever read The Idiot or The Gambler. I think there's a few other minor works of Dostoevsky that I haven't read, but I took a class on him in my undergrad and was really blown away by the professor who was able to give so much valuable historical, social, cultural context, because she was Professor Sandra Friels, the head of the Russian languages department at Portland State University in Portland, Oregon, where I went to school. And it just was just a class of extreme high quality. And I really recommend if you can get a class online or otherwise with a Russian professor on Russian literature. I think it's so much more valuable than just going to take a class with someone who knows Dostoevsky just in translation. There are particularities to the language that are specific to 19th century Russian that I think you really need to know and understand in order to teach it well. So I really appreciate the time that she spent those many years ago. looking at the data, that must have been 17 or 18 years ago when I took that class. And I'm still reading Dostoevsky. Still comes back, which apparently is a red flag. Guys who read Dostoevsky, red flag. Dead House. Pull the bookcase down on me, but make it look like an accident. I don't want you to get a sentence for being the druggist who overprescribed me pills. Sell what remains. The unbroken spines, sturdy with animal collagen glue some bookbinder rendered themselves from a horse they never named. A short list of friends will send flowers for a smaller group to smell, along the corpse whose own volumes are buried with them. I'll await the resurrection I can no longer hold in my hand. Next one's called Defenestration. I don't know. I don't think Gary Lime is here. Are you here, Gary Lime? If you're not, hats off to you for reminding me about the word defenestration, which literally means to be thrown through a window. And it's a classic trope in Western films, particularly when there's a fight in the saloon. There's always going to be a shot from the outside of the saloon, and someone gets thrown through the window. It's just such a classic shot. It's great. And so this was kind of inspired by a rewatch of the classic movie Tombstone, which apparently was a very volatile time for a lot of the actors on set. But it has one of, I think, my favorite performances by Val Kilmer, and I was thinking about him around this time when he passed. So, but there's also other things in here too. So again, if you want to follow along, you can go to my Substack. Defenestration is number 60. Number 60. I did miss 2 songs that maybe I'll sing later. Maybe not. We'll see. There's two songs that I put the lyrics on my Substack, but they're songs rather than poems. But I do still like to write songs occasionally. I might not necessarily have the music to put to them, but I do have some kind of melody. So maybe I'll sing them later. This is defenestration. Behind my teeth there is a capped confidence. It's what makes them shine so much brighter than they are. I'm chirping like a fire alarm that needs a change of battery, or like a lonely cricket in Canada crawling with chilled wings toward the Arctic Circle. While we're admiring the grebes through the tree fuzz raining down on us like your tears, I want to throw myself through the window at C.S. Fly's photography studio, where I'd become a blur in the magnesium smoke. My lungs expel the blood of my lies by omission, my missionary positions, of my desire for ambition to be stricken from the record. To march like the windowsill ants in sibilant and dutiful submission to one Hungarian queen I have no will to betray. Among the bits of broken glass, seems it was a two-way mirror, and whoever I was in custody is on the run. I don't gamble, but when I brush my teeth over the faux marble sink, water and fluoride tumbled over a 20-sided die stuck at the bottom of the drain. Luxuries of the East, the basis of an entire world of vapory pain, rising on a paddle wheel with the steam of a calliope. I'd like to live long, but not too long, to keep the mustache that wears me and a friend to stand with in the reckoning of all our Western ways, put down like a horse. A little bit of Maverick there at the end too. And in that sense, I don't mean Maverick, the co-star of Iceman's Val Kilmer in Top Gun, but Maverick, the card shark. I believe the 90s version played by Mel Gibson and opposite Jodie Foster and, oh my gosh, I forget that other actor's name, played the original Maverick. Someone can look it up and leave it in the comments. Speaking of fathers and what we inherit, here is a fatherhood of hair. Before we go out, there's some truths to be up about. The good rat dad always grows such a long contemplative beard for their nesting. Call it a fatherhood of hair. And in this practice, I show others how patriarch can be a basket against vipers that keep their tattoos on the back of their heads. Not to worry, my children only bite on command. You're welcome to raid my pantry for the nearly expired goods, to join the dining car on my journey of thrift and industry. Normally, I get invited to these dances, but not dancing, just hanging around as a chaperone in a tartan kilt, like a grifter. If you think about it, polyamory is like a country dance, a shuffling circle that never turns a corner, despite all the quick steps. Common names yelled across a large enough gathering turn more heads than one intended. I apologize in advance if I keep looking up. So many people are looking for fathers. Your call, but it's also a last call for anything you yet can fold over, crease, dissolve. A partnership that works out after the credits, that's what I'm looking for. Should we get a move on? The next poem is called Mended/Broken. Got a few of these titles where they're one word and then another. I just feel like sometimes you could think about the poem as being both a having either title. You could read this poem with the title Mended, and then you could reread it with the title Broken. So let's see what we got. Early July. A colony of tiny domes, beads of sweat glazed the dusky light upon my freckled and fuzzy forearms. As if I had not just climbed out of the mist setting on the shower head and dried off minutes before another June in the record books. So I sit down to sing, to de-emphasize my spiraling, and encourage the lucky bamboo cutting on my desk corner to sprout another luminescence, like the last dispensation of light bugs in the low-cut grass. I try to write a song, an improvisation about pottery and rattan, what can be mended and what remains broken. Yesterday, in the trapped heat of the 100-year-old house, with sweat that stung my eyes, coalescing my tears of frustration, mopping the kitchen, and thinking from body memory with the slow passes over the linoleum about my first work-study job as a custodian at the Senior Painter Studio building. Theses on the easels and walls, I push my head up from the past on the floor to gaze through the gauze of a screened-in window and spot the raptor tearing into a young and unlucky woodchuck. I hadn't seen the dive, the clutching of talons, but I wasted no time leaving Portland behind on the handle and fetching and placing my grandfather's binoculars to my face, so close as to almost be grazing my eyeballs. I saw the pulls of sinew and gut up to the razor beak, of flies descending into the pink, of the coat and tail rising briefly like it was on a sea of grass and twigs, unalive in the same swell as the raft of the Medusa. And the red-tailed hawk, telescopic, panoptic, sensing it was being watched, but ever vigilant, its gullet bobbing with viscera and the waste of bones and fur dropping into that soup of the dead only predators delight in keeping on low boil. After a quarter of an hour, I unmasked myself as birder, but leaving my attention on the poro prisms, I changed tasks too quickly. Picking up a bar stool where my largest aloe plant sat, a healer of burns that can't heal what hurts me, I clip the corner of my shoe rack with its leg, and the tray with the paintings of the wildflowers of Scotland, and the chair with the busted rattan skin look on with the myopic vision as the aloe vessel shatters. In the near future, rattan cane will be used to create artificial bones, but perhaps even they will be picked clean by a bird of prey. Today, shade hopping away from the handleless potsherds, but still stuck on stubbornness and loyalty in a divided nation, I climb up a tree in my heart and try to weigh how full of shit I am by how far the ventricular branch bends if it doesn't break, and even then, if a grafting could bear more useful fruit than what blooms in my gut. Digestion, it's fascinating. It's a fascinating process. When you read, you digest. When you hear, you digest. It's really, everything's just food. Everything's just food. Okay, it's 8 o'clock. We're more than halfway done. I don't think I'm getting any more viewers here, but that's okay. This is what happens. Trump wants to put us in a massive secret government database. Awesome. This one is called Kind Men. Kind Men. Kind men die on you, while assholes live forever. Maybe not forever, but longer than whatever karmic bacteria eats away at the men who won't take advantage of you even when you let them. The sphincters, pure and simple, stable in their instability. Not always addicts, but a plus if they are, pinch you awake from the nervous, shy, and kind men. Enough never have I evers drop their balls past a point of tension and your tolerability, to roll under the bed where kind men find no hospice, nor should they. The cancer of kindness, passivity, the guarantee of 100% poppycock. The stiff collagen of commitment breaks like glass. It must be a childhood disease, this wound to their souls, a shy polio. I wouldn't know. Exposure therapy has cured me. Of kind men, go ask Iron John, who was found like a clot of hair at the bottom of a shower drain. Tamed by the family cage, once kind men pick their locks with a long nail, they stretch like wild animals, unabashed sun cats thrashing about the ceiling. Either this, or they perish in the captivity of their own design. Savagery is sexy and doesn't try to ink you like an octopus teacher. Tucker Max is a ghostwriter, but didn't write this poem. In hell, the beer will flow from the mouths of kind men who weren't really all that kind to themselves, or the conscious love that loosens the uptight, clenched holes of men too wounded to bleed. So, call that another work on masculinity that I'm fond of contemplating about and writing. Got to get people to the bars. All right, let's keep it up. Delta waves. Dreams are a flu no vaccine can immunize against, no person but those high and holy avatars that hold up reality with their bodies as counterweights to the unconscious and capricious hungers that our forms bind themselves to. With their eyes closed and senses open, they are the opposite of both sleep and waking. Still, our sickness is beatific. Combing our hair, each strand that falls out is an unfulfilled desire. Later, existentially bald, we order toupees of debt. The shiny joys are covered up with practical boredoms. In a child's pineal gland, a pure and unadulterated wish for crystalline honesty. In an adult, veneers on our forced smiles bind us again from saying the darndest things. In bed, on chaise or lounge, we achieve the equality generations of peacemakers sought, to manifest in the light of a morning on earth, painted with blue smoke, tickling a single wind chime. Dream on, dream on. We must dream until the dreams pickle in the salt of life, which is rather spicy, enough to flavor them for mouths who've lost or never had the taste for transcendence, which is just another word for ego death by choking on the soup bone of silence. One of two natures. So we've got human nature, second nature. Human nature, second nature. One of these, one of two natures. Or maybe nature, capital N. So you decide. One of two natures, more frightening than reoccurring nightmares, are the variations on a theme of infidelity that have visited me 3 nights in a row. Fables carried across cultural divides, transmuted to spur me, make me yearn, while I pack my go bag of characters: reader, lover, cook, custodian, chauffeur, card shuffler, gardener. Am I over the weight limit? Arriving in the light of another sun, behind the gauzy smoke of burning acreage, on the doorstep of hope, I will choose to possess a mind that relents needless suffering. Swing the desk lamp over like a squeaky censer that crests another moon, full up and pulled back over a wafting strip of perfume from old Armenia. Outside, more tree limbs fall that couldn't hold up the sky, but we don't know what to do with them except hack away and dump them back in the wooded area bordering the country road. From this compost, one of two natures is balanced, What I submit to with my dominant foot shifts the image like a convex mirror, pushes light to the edges, and decenters what I fear. Dishonesty in the dark, chasing missed opportunities, following dire warnings from scorpion and frog alike. 3 a.m. in the deepest night. It's always the quietest when a brutal mix of fearfully strange and serene dullness sits on top of my chest. Until day rouses me and I ask for mercy with my fingers knit into fists that could just as well be for throwing the bad as me man from a Chicago-bound train, or kneading your breasts like a purring cat, making love, a ritual born from instinct. Scorpion and frog, I don't know if ever, that's speaking of kvass and Russia and Dostoevsky. St. Patrick's Day, but I can't get away from the Russians. Scorpion and frog, it's an old fable. I forget, there's another one that's very similar in Aesop's tales. I'm trying to recall. Fox and the hen, fox and the chicken, something like that. But Scorpion needs to get across a flooded river, asks a frog, says, hey, can you give me a ride across? The frog says, I would like to, but you're a scorpion and you sting. So if you get on my back and we start across the river, you're going to sting me, and then we're both going to drown. And the scorpion says, no, I promise you that won't happen. That I won't do that. Gets on his back. They're halfway across the river. Scorpion gets spooked, stings the frog, and before they go down, the frog asks him, well, why did you sting me? And the scorpion just answers that it was in his nature. It was in his nature to sting. That although he had some intention to not do something, instinct took over. So I wonder about this if we're not too much further from the scorpion. The damage that we inflict, is it instinctual? Do we have a choice even if we say that we won't hurt each other or nature? Next one is after Luray Caverns. Luray Caverns is a wonderful place. I went there with my cousins this past summer. I got one of those little penny. Oh my gosh, I love these. I know pennies are disappearing. So hang on to these when you get them, because then you can put 2 quarters in, and you can make them make these guys. Luray Caverns. It's in Virginia. After Luray Caverns, the jawless fish of the Ordovician, shells and fins stacked 100 feet thick. It's a temple of limestone that clowns over my head, with stagnant swimming that drips on hundreds to thousands of divers every hour. This opening of one vulva, of so many we fucked on the planet Milth, is undone again by sus poetry. Saracen's tent, Dream Lake, Titania's veil. Illusions that disrupt my experience as much as, if not more than, the breakers for the lighting, hidden under bald outcrops, or the garish wishing well, raising eyebrows as much as funds within such a slow, sexy work of geology that millions of years made into a hard-on of organ pipes. A toast then to the fish market and the scales that weigh our existence as grains for scrubbing the bottom of feet that shuffle along a depression, lighting our sad eyes aglow. The next poem is called The Thunder. It was inspired by an episode of, what was that show? Not Love Is Blind. What was that show with Nick and Alandria? I don't remember. Love Island, USA. The Thunder, this poem was inspired by Love Island, USA. Okay. If things work out exactly as they were meant to, I hope your architect followed the system you danged a check on your cognitive bias while staring into the corner of light severe. Breaking off lavender and smelling not only the oil emitting like quasar flashes into my nostrils, but the stinky pits and knock-kneed nooks of bees who munch their queens with a solid hexagonal most devotion. Because that's what we're just looking for that devotion. This next one's called Vulgarian, which is a play on my name, Gary. I'm Gary Dale Burns. This is Tuesdays for the Poetry, and I'm reading Poems of 2025, if you're just joining us. We are just past the first hour. There's not too many more poems left. If you'd like to follow along, most of the poems in their original form are on garydaleburns.substack.com, which you can see in the chat. Is dedicated to Karl Kraus, who lived from 1874. He died just as Hitler was gaining power, and he was an Austrian writer who really, I think, was a prophet of the press, in the sense that he saw what was to come with the use of propaganda within news media in order to sway an entire public. In this case, at that time, the Republic of Germany, to really fall prey to the kinds of ideas that the National Socialist Party was putting forward. So this is for him and for his prophecies. Vulgarian, for Karl Kraus. Austerity is what makes us corruptible. So don't bother trying to pick up the ash pile like a shrunken pyramid with your fingers in a precious and exquisite pinch. Redundancies are numbered, built into another foundation than the circle of rocks we're squaring the calendar in some ethereal fable. When you gathered wood, flinted, tindered, blazed, then felt the embrace of a raked field of open embers on your closed eyelids, I knew, and that hypocritical face, a non-judgmental love, and readily consume your guilt and shames under a piss-colored moon. I'd hug you to death like that if you could resurrect over and over and over and over again. A noisy cricket whose signal never gets lost in the unregulated garbage to both curl up in the flames and spring back green. There's something so silly and sorrowful in your eyes with them open, a look that gives me tears and a tracheotomy like a funny joke that turns itself inside out. For half a truth and 1.5 truth and a 1.5 engendering the vulgar with the divine. Counting on the nova. Still waiting for the T Corona Borealis nova. It's going to explode soon. They know it will. It'll be very bright in the sky. Hopefully we won't have a lot of cloud cover and we can all see it here in the Western Hemisphere. So this has something to do with that, but otherwise it's just about celestial and earthly events having connections. Counting on the nova. If the terror seems unreal, it won't be much of an act of terrorism to write that whether you're at Mauna Loa Observatory or looking through the tube of an empty roll of paper towels, apparent magnitude has little to do with size. Guest stars appear and disappear, some returning while others are 86th by their burning out. The hosts can only hold for so long bodies in their green zones, with every volatile visitor threatening to end life as we have known it, which may have its benefits. Unhinged take, properly measured, I believe some comedians achieve what that one learned astronomer at the right hand of Johnny Carson something worth saying off stage. If this is how we live, an arm's length away from a recording on gold that's consumed by another failed launch, scared but together, angry and together, we count on the Nova to bring us a flash grenade, to stun all these motherfuckers cosplaying soldier and blind the already blind. Skin barrier. I'm quaking with the micro tremors of a roof hit by micrometeorites, but it's only the pain of poison ivy spreading around my fuzzy belly, on my writing arm bubbling like I was a ferment of something worth bottling. By monks who know the value of obedience to plants, microorganisms, water, and time. Summers are unkind. My appendages turn lobster and are baked or feasted on by a virus of mosquitoes. Now, this contact with Urushiel, which sounds like an ancient goddess from whose broken idol its first tendrils uncurled. Healing slow, I quake as her votary with winter's placenta. Cooking the peppers, picked from the patch we met, where the sickle blades were communal scissors. I wonder if I'll be an innie or an outie in this second life. Scythe from Saint Nick. That diorama of cognitive dissonance at my local hardware store. Christmas versus Halloween. In late summer sunbeams, without candy, a holiday gifts shoes the shoeless, sends them out to knock on doors and cut and run, leaving the flaming bag of dog shit for no feet to print. A fleet of lap sitters ask for signs to hang behind the cellar door. Free product placement. The moon, the breast of the night, has always been Amazonian, an archer of rebounding light. Spin me to your dark side. Throw me over the hail bay on your houndstooth coat and let's rise. Sing a physical urge to shape from shadows what an iron peak has torn away from the belly of the Logos. Empathy could drive the evil spirits away that would hover over the child's bed, a hateful parent made of nails. How do such stories ring out before drowning in the quench? With the long, curved sound chimes for tall wheat, to bake bread and make a floor of dancing loaves. I had dancing elves there, but I think loaves sounds better. Because what if bread danced? Wouldn't that be interesting? Sometimes I read these and, there's a different kind of inspiration that hits me. Almost done with my kvass, almost done with the poems. I think we'll probably finish before 8:30. Let's see. How high the mammal? All that I can ask of you is perspective. Not the kind you couldn't quite get right when shown basic drawing skills, with the vanishing point seeming to wander every time you laid the foundation of the building, but the inner construction of a coin-free viewfinder atop your own Empire State Building, free of Kong's grip through its windows. If you accept the ticket to take an Otis elevator up to observe the sea floating as thin as an atmospheric bubble over a planetary delta of asphalt and muck, somehow sustaining people, would you call down to me and report on the big day its birds of prey? Especially the one going after my soon-to-be pickled liver. The endurance of sad men holds like that kind of tragic spectacle. Birding is like this, thrust upon you. You're given a leather glove that never caught a baseball or wrapped around a motorbike throttle, and it feels good to finally have a hand under control, yet just under a layer of flesh away from bloodletting. Hardcore? Nah, just a stargazer who knows all lights are eaten by entropy. The dinosaur that battled Kong could not have been bound by chrome, steel, any more than the god king himself. Beauty surrounds you, is crawling towards you, line by line, thirsting for the compassion that ravenous time will not give it, that you will not give yourself, unless you're out birding, or drawing on plain air, or gazing through a glass elevator freed from its pulleys and counterweights. The next poem is called Hospitality. I'd rather you feel a negative emotion towards me than indifference, and or being unsure about the touch of me against you as we both plop into an aquarium like betta fish and swim around each other like we were sizing up for a gladiatorial match. Wisdom eludes me, withers away like sun-bleached trash in a ditch beside the truck route, carrying Cisco foodstuffs to another school, holding Taco Tuesdays. The winds of Halloween carried by the waxing moon guaranteed the falling of tree limbs, rush delivery. If the dead creep up to the veil and beckon to us each year that night, I read my father's work while a vortex spins over Trois-Rivières, the ancestral town of the landed French who exist in a quarter of my blood, getting like baguettes, cross purposes across invisible boundaries, like ley lines from one county seat to the next. Living under the canopy of the dead, we want the show to be a circus rather than a place where field dressings or revivals are given. It's goofy to suggest otherwise that our greatest values are for comedy. Laughter is what causes us to believe that a river can read nursery rhymes in the destruction of cairns, that rocks raining down to be blessed by its own planet's indifference. The fleeting fire of warmth and other fatalities like thermal blankets and a hot drink can make the endurance of shots for the exit once peppers are ingested and acting out generational trauma. Ofrenda for Father, binders of prose, and a selection of poems from family to Diet Cherry Dr. Pepper. I don't know where the dead stay, or waylaid until the hood of a mushroom crashes through their vault. But I suspect when I call on my ancestors, the sets are long and the punchlines are batted from one side of the net to another. I don't know for sure, but we love a good comeback story. That a little bit of a reference to my dad's writing. That was a Halloween poem. So we're almost to the end of the year of 2025 in these readings. And he did, in fact, write a poem about Diet Cherry Dr. Pepper, which I guess was one of his favorite sodas. I wonder if he ever drank Kvass. This is just a Kvass commercial. Sponsor me, Kvass, whatever brand. The non-alcoholic malt beverage. The next one has a reference to Timur, also known in the West as Tamerlane, who is a Mongol of Turkic roots who ended up invading modern-day Iran, which is a very fitting reading for what's happening in Iran right now, because Iran has dealt with many invaders in the past. During that time, of course, it was known as Persia, and in the city of Shiraz, there lived the poet that many people know as Hafez or Hafiz, depending on the pronunciation. So this poem is a bit about Hafez, and I will just leave it at that. But it's called After Timur. I thought I killed a kissing bug and saw death's head on a bean the day you went north for space. Disregarding these unfavorable signs for the steely resolve of partitioning my bare minimum self-regard for poor life of faulty wiring, I now write tree trunk wide, replete with saps that amber rather than drain. That home is where I am not teaching. Naively, I affirmed at one point that teaching is a form of learning, and so I haven't finished a book since the summertime warmed us at the lighthouse on the Sopus. At work, I teach youth about the puzzle and the memorizer, espousing the triangle on the board, mystic, romantic, and platonic love, each angle labeled, but it should have been a scalene rather than an equilateral, oriented towards use of imagery, symbolism, and ambiguity. A 700-year-old writer from Shiraz who witnessed massacres by Timur. What, Gary, do you hope they learn? Youths who seek happiness hold the advice of a knowledgeable elder, as if you could give it to them for the ruins of your youth, where good advice was choosing the right channel to watch and making sure to mute the commercials. Still, I dream of dancing a little with the raw power of rage against rose garden pavings. Beloved, how are we to find the wine cellar whose divine pour aerates our ecstasy through a geomagnetic storm? I married the garlic powders on the shelf of spices, pouring me into you as colors transfigure senses. Okay, we're in December now. A sublingual tooth. It's crucial when singing the hymns to open outward, widening the circle of shrubs, briar roses that keep your heart hidden from the SWAT team of love. When the dentist gave you the option to pull or keep, you gave amnesty to the sublingual tooth. Why take something away that speaks the freak in you? Self-love of nature's error, nub of truth imperfect, no world could be designed without. For the arrest, a warrant, scribbles unpoetic, permission the outflow of personhood to another for keeping and letting go. The tooth is no inconvenience this very silent night as love's star explodes. It's nothing but water music up there where wiser men find their wisdom beyond teeth or nails. Okay, last two poems, and then we're done. Tree fell, hits the earth hard. A memory of nut cracking, of emergence back down the taproot, when young, soft, and green, when the sun sent signals crystalline and commanding to reach, reach, reach for the sky. You would never nor care to understand. What can be salvaged, reclaimed on a moonless night, when you're the one who outshines the stars? A ragged scrimshaw on bone, your lowest fruit, cold stones in the powder, suspension of rot in earthen refrigeration. No icebox needed. You won't be cleared away until the spring, fed to a heap as mulch, cut apart for bonfires before the next ban. A dead hand, shaking the ice-welded ground your feet are still planted in. Knocking on the door of decay, you're left outside a reception with a toast of cider, that mold and spices from the other end of Post Road, where ships once docked from the other end of the world, producing an ancient that approaches you tomorrow and plops like an orangutan on your limb that still has some flex. You bend, but do not yield, knowing rest is temporary. Flesh is also withering, and his rings, like yours, will be counted. A little bit of an influence from Coleridge's Rime of the Ancient Mariner, which I was teaching at the time to my 8th graders. Last one, surcharge. I could read work in someone else's voice, when I've lost my own, at the risk of whale song sounding like the cracking of glaciers. No, I'd rather keep quiet in this void of expression. Here, there is remedy. There is also slow healing and scratching relatively near the red bites done by the little ratty angers and scared spiders ignorant of the light of forgiveness. There is remedy, nonetheless. Here, where asking for an apology is not taking your purchase to ringing cashiers. It's a surcharge on something you'll never bring home with a payment plan or spend cash outright for. It's porn that is free. Love is costly, but doesn't accept careless pay. Strokes of genius take oxygen away. From the other rooms of this house we roam like a module in the space station closed to the vacuum. Writing another form of collection. In words written down, some things rise with a newfound condition. Not righteous or worthy, eligible nonetheless for a loan of voice redeemed, of bottles returned, instead of thrown over your shoulder like a Bindlestiff in Steinbeck's novel. Maybe voices waiting on the other side of Times Square, and its ball dropping. And when it drops again, for us, in July, how much will the surcharge be? I think I'll skip the songs because I don't really have anyone here, but I appreciate those that did tune in and left some love in the chat. This was another Tuesdays for the poetry. They haven't really been that often. My live readings, excuse me. But I hope to read some more in person, as I did at Monument Gallery this year, possibly down in the city if I can get my way down there. But otherwise, I will keep writing. So if you are not subscribed yet to GaryDaleBurns.substack.com, you should do so because every Tuesday I have a new poem. And there's a new poem that I will be posting immediately after this. So check out my new poem, which is called Gnostic War. And I hope you enjoy it. I composed it on a brief self-retreat that I just gave to myself in Gloucester, Mass, where I got to go to the gravesite as well as the former home of Charles Olson, who lived from 1910 to 1970 and called Gloucester home for 40 some odd years. Look up his work if you haven't. In particular, a bibliography of America for Ed Dorn, as well as his piece called "The Gate in the Center." The Gate in the Center, both really important pieces of prose writing by a poet. Olson actually he coined the term postmodern for good or ill, one could say. So with that. Thank you so much. Happy St. Patrick's Day to those who celebrate, and be kind, be safe, and make sure you have some poetry in your life. It's really valuable. See you guys.